is Alfred.
We're Black Dice Gaming.
So today we're going to be continuing our series on the Affiliation breakdown for Marvel Crisis Protocol. And today's Affiliation, figure we get to something newer that's come out, and that is the Web Warriors.
Nice.
Yep, all these Spider-Men and women even. And we've gotten a few games with them under our belts, and I'm a big fan of them. So just some of our general thoughts about the Spider people. It is a team with a lot of pushes and a lot of repositioning abilities. So they can kind of, push and pull the enemy all around the battlefield. And this plays very well into a strong defensive team. So not only does their ability really heavily revolve around objective play and having objectives, being around objectives, but their skill set themselves make them very, very adept at controlling those same objectives. So whether that is trying to web and pull the enemy back towards you so that you can grab an objective, or whether it's pushing enemies off to secure an objective, a lot of tools to help you win that battle.
Another thing is that speed. There's a lot of high speed. I mean, we're talking a lot of long movement. I mean, so these guys are able to wrap around a battlefield. So anything that would have your people going from one end to another, touching objectives and moving, this would be your cup of tea.
Yeah, outside of Venom, you can place all three of your Spider-Men in the middle of the field on practically any objective, and your enemy would not be able to determine where exactly you and where you want to end up at the end of the turn. I mean, you could just totally change the whether you want to be on this flank or that flank. I mean, the speed at which they can reposition. It's one of their best abilities, absolutely, best abilities, especially once they grab that objective. If someone like Peter or Gwen grabs the objective, good luck getting it back to them, You might not be able to.
You'd have to catch them and drop them.
And you might not be able to get the chance, with that large movement. If you're far enough away to begin with, good luck.
Yeah.
And so, that brings us to our roster discussion. Not too many people to discuss, but I don't mind that. I like the smaller rosters every once in a while. But our four options. So we have Miles Morales as the leader of the Spider people, in addition to Peter Parker and Spider Ghost or Gwen Stacy, and then Venom.
Yeah, one of the ones I'd really like to see would probably be like Ben Reilly. Hey, Atomic Mass Games, please listen to this one. Ben Reilly, awesome.
Superior Spider-Man first, and then Ben Reilly.
If he's gonna go with Superior Spider-Man, no. Spider-Ham, definitely Spider-Ham. Yes, give me some Spider-Ham.
You never
Spider
got a comic, so
let's give it to him.
Let's not.
Yes.
But as far as their current roster, I think it is it's a nice, solid roster. So It pairs very well, some of these characters with the Web Warrior ability bonus, which we'll get into. So it's a two-part ability. The first part is everyone, no matter what, you get an extra reroll on your defense dice. So this stacks with whatever rerolls you already have. So people like Okoye, we're now re-rolling 2 dice on defense.
Hey.
Or, people like Peter and Miles now are re-rolling all of their defense dice. Zemo re-rolls 2 of his defense dice. It's really strong. And then in addition to that, if anyone in the, if you have the Affiliation active, then anyone who is in contesting range of an objective or holding an objective marker, they get to modify their skull results on rerolls.
Wow. That's something you're not even supposed to.
Well, they get to modify them, period, and they get to reroll them, So it's, if you have abilities like Gamora's, those wilds can now turn them into hits.
Oh, God.
It's really strong. It's really strong. It's one of the few ways we have seen in the game that you can modify skulls. Now they started adding a little bit more of that. So you see it in Arch Nemesis with Green Goblin, or in Doctor Strange coming up here pretty soon for the Defenders, but still a pretty rare ability. And it is not just for defense, it is also for offense. So you can use it both of those ways as long as you are on the objective. Now that does, that does lend itself, the Web Warrior player should be building with missions in mind that have a lot of these tokens. So something like the Civilians, or Hammers, or maybe even the Spider Infected. These missions where you have a lot of these tokens out, so you can grab them on your people. So it doesn't matter if you're near an objective or not now, you can still modify those dice. Yep. As long as you're holding it, you can still do it. That's a big thing. Yeah. It may, if you have priority, it may make you want to choose those extract missions a little bit more rather than the secures. Just food for thought.
Sure.
So that will bring us to some of our lists, and since we don't have very many characters in this affiliation, there's really not too much variety that you could really have. But I think there is two kind of philosophies that you can go with when building the list. So you can either go for 3 of your Spider affiliation people, or just go for the 4 full. And so I think the 3-man core still, with Gwen, Miles. I think Gwen and Miles you want to take almost always. Gwen and Miles are both very strong, and since they're 3 points, they're cheap. And then you bring one of those 4-pointers, either in Venom or Peter. That gives you 10 points, and that is a solid base for you to build off of. And it's really easy, whether it's at 15, 17, even 18 points, to fit in 2 characters that can fit in that, that allotment of points for you, that maintains your affiliation bonus, but allows you a lot of flexibility in those picks on what you want to see.
Now, mind you, when we talk about this, just to let you guys know, 17 is the average. We're just basing it off the average. So there are 20-point ones. That's great, but we're just basing it off average.
And some affiliations, I think you want to go for higher points. Web Warriors, I'm not sure that's one of those,
No, you'd be filling it up way too much with other people.
It's not only that you're filling it up, but since you have a lot of cheap defensive characters, you can perform well at those lower point costs, and not suffer as much.
It's very optimal.
Especially at 15 points, I think in something like Wakandan Herbs, one of Web Warrior's strongest missions. 15 points in Wakandan Herbs, you bring Miles, Gwen, Peter, and some 5-point character. That's a strong 15 points to deal with. Like imagine Doctor Strange in that. Yikes. But that's as far as the 3-man core goes. A lot of flexibility, but the 4-man core is also very good. So I think Venom, Peter, Miles, and Gwen, all of them, I think they themselves have a lot of synergies with each other. They work well together, and they have a lot of cards, that work well. The Web Warrior cards, when we get to them, they are really, really strong. Really, some of the best affiliation exclusive cards I think we've seen so far.
Well, I've noticed that when we've done, we've noticed when we've played Venom that he wasn't so good. He was starting to get worse and worse, and then the Web Warriors came by, and now it's like he finally can do something. He's finally useful.
Well, yeah, Venom's gotten a nice injection of life lately, getting 2 different affiliations between Spider Foes and the Web Warriors. But I think what really pushes Venom over the edge is that drop-off ability.
Yeah.
Having drop-off, having a, either like your Ultron, your Green Goblin, able to drop Venom off in the middle of the battlefield so you can start being a threat and an annoyance turn 1.
Horrible threat.
And it removes his biggest downside, which is that slow speed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it lets him keep up with the rest of the team. But yeah, I guess we'll just keep discussing some of these other cards. But I think drop off for Venom, a big one. So for our Web Warrior specific cards, we have All Webbed Up and Web Barrier. So All Webbed Up is kind of like your Web Bomb, where one of your Web Warriors you choose spends 3 power, and every enemy within 3 is slowed. So it's a big AoE slow. I mean, that's a big AoE.
That's dirty.
Yeah. Especially if that's someone on Venom, too, because that's on that bigger base, bigger AoE.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in addition to being slowed, any Web Warrior for the rest of the turn, when they attack that target, they get 2 extra dice. So not only is it a debuff in a form of slow for everyone, it's also a big attack buff for you.
I think that's kind of like the whole idea of a spider. I mean, spiders move fast in their webs. They're not slowed down like everyone else is. So it makes sense.
Yeah, well, it helps the team too a lot because they don't have too many, offensive buffs or offensive rerolls unless you're, putting Shuri or something in there. So it's a nice full turn buff for the entire team for 3 power, and it kind of forces your opponent to burn the slow, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice soft control element in itself. Is that, hey, yeah, you can keep the slow, but do you want to take these punches? Do you want to take a 9 dice We Are Venom? Maybe not.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to do that, and you get rid of that slow. But hey, that's an action. I'll take it. Then the other card we have is the Web Barrier card. So both you choose 2 Web Warriors, and they both spend 1 power. As long as they're within 3 of each other, you create a impenetrable wall that blocks line of sight. Movement keys can't be placed on it. You can't fly over it. The only way you can get through it is to climb, which is a small action. And so you would have to be close enough to that Web Barrier to begin, to begin that climb, and then end over it, with that small movement key. So it's rough.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's rough, and it only blocks line of sight for enemies. So, I mean, you can have characters like MODOK or Hawkeye sitting behind that Web Barrier, pelting people down.
There's nothing they can do about it.
I mean, that may not be a common occurrence, but it is something that you can do.
Sound strategy.
I think it's also good with Gwen, because with that, her rescue ability, if the attacker loses line of sight, then it stops the attack action.
Yeah.
So,
when we're talking
that's
about
a nice
strategies, is also the one that we noticed. I noticed something interesting. See, when it comes to the name of the character, it's very important. One of the first things I noticed was Green Goblin. Green Goblin has an enmity or something that has to do with Peter Parker.
Yeah, the arch nemesis is only for Peter Parker.
Well, there is a card, I think if I'm correct, it's Uneasy Allies.
Yeah, the Uneasy Allies, the Venom, and Spider-Man card.
And because it says Spider-Man, remember, Spider-Man is not just Peter Parker. It's also Miles.
Yep. So that Uneasy Ally card, brings us to the 2 Venom cards, which I think are really good.
Yeah.
Warriors.
They're really
I mean, if you're bringing Venom, you should be playing these cards, I think. But Uneasy Allies, you both take 1 damage, and you get 2 extra attack dice, or 3 extra attack dice.
3 extra.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's solid. That's a good ability, and you bring up a good point. You can proc that off Miles or Peter. So if you're just taking Miles and Gwen and Venom, you can still use that card and still plenty good.
Here's the next thought when it comes to tips and tricks and how to use people effectively. One thing that I noticed is that Uneasy Allies take a little bit of damage. Now you're getting 3 extra dice. With Venom, you can now put, what was the other one?
So his other specific card is Lethal Protector.
No, it's the other one that he takes damage for, or the one that we found that he takes damage for.
Oh, you're thinking of No Matter the Cost.
There we go. So you take Uneasy Allies, you take No Matter the Cost. Now his
Venom is free.
It's free.
You can
Plus
heal back all the damage you just took potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
The only one that gets hurt is maybe Miles Morales.
I
or
mean,
Peter
it's a lot
Parker
of
for one.
cards, you know. It's 2 cards, but 2 cards for a pretty hefty.
A massive
We are
amount of
Venom.
damage and heal back.
Yep.
So it's definitely worth to take a look at if that's what you're looking for your card building for your team tactic cards.
Yeah, I think that no matter the cost card is a really good one with Venom too. And now that we're seeing Venom more, you know, some of these more niche cards, you know, they're finding their place in those, you know, your 8.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to round this discussion off, well, we got the Lethal Protector card still, right? So let's finish that one. We got the Lethal Protector, which is a solid bodyguard. I mean, it's just a better bodyguard ability. It's a further range at 3 range. It still only costs 2 power, and you get to place Venom, once again helping with that, you know, slow Venom speed. I think between the 2 cards, Uneasy Allies and Lethal Protector, if you're only going to choose one Venom card, take Lethal Protector almost all the time.
Oh yeah.
Because you can, you know, take that bodyguard Lethal Protector shot, and then do the so many snacks.
Eat it up.
Yep, just punch them right back. But just to round out our discussion here on the Web Warriors, we're gonna, you know, discuss, as always, some of our honorary Web Warriors, the out of affiliation people that are particularly good in Web Warriors. And I think we would be remiss to not start this discussion off by talking about Shuri, which is just, and you could say that about a lot of affiliations, just get immediately better by adding Shuri. But particularly this affiliation, since you now have the ability to reroll and modify those skull dice.
Oh yeah.
So, and not only that, adding a offensive reroll to, you know, Venom or Gwen, just
It would be ridiculous.
it helps that, you know, that punching power. It's really strong. In addition, she has kind of a similar tool set to some of these spider people. She has that push on her attacks, you know, so she's doing a lot of the same things that you already are trying to do, you know, pushing the enemy around, getting them off objectives, controlling the battlefield.
You know, and being the fact that you, whenever we've played together, you like creating Venom to be a dive bomb for me. So I'd be remiss if I didn't add like Green Goblin or someone like Ultron. You know, basically flyers.
Any size 3 flyer, so those are the only 2 for now, you know, I think fit really well into this affiliation. So the points, it's one of the reasons why I really like that 3-man core at 17 points, because you can take Ultron or Green Goblin for 4 points and still have that 3 points to fill over, you know, someone like Shuri or this next character we're going to get here to, Drax. So Drax, I think, is another particularly, one of the first Guardians we're going to talk about, that is a particularly good Web Warrior. So adding another layer of defense to Drax with that reroll on top of his, you know, his Iron Man, the damage reduction passive, really strong. In addition, he also, kind of like Shuri, he has that guaranteed push. So he's controlling objectives. He has a nice throw, the size 3, which is something that, you know, some of the other Spider-Men don't have. Easily accessible. So, you know, Miles, you have to get it on the throw, or on the wild rather. So it's not guaranteed, especially on a 4 dice attack. Then Gwen's, the freestyle beatdown, it is guaranteed, but it's a 3 power, you know, attack action, right?
Yeah, now you're spending power.
I mean, not only power, but also sometimes that action is a big deal, you know? That it's that 3rd pseudo-fake attack with that throw after your 2 real attacks, sometimes that's what, you know, spells death.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we'll see. And then last but certainly not least, one of my favorite spider people, Gamora. She is...
Calling Gamora a spider person, that's kind of hilarious.
I mean, she fits really well with the theme. She moves fast, and she is a really nice, just scalpel for a team, you know, a more defensive-oriented team.
Right.
She has that nasty Goddess Slayer attack, so she can pump out the damage, and allowing yourself that defensive reroll helps shore up a little bit of her weaknesses. You know, she's real fragile. Now, yeah, the one defense dice roll, I'm going to save you all the time, but it certainly helps, you know, up that survivability factor, which is definitely her only drawback. But any other honorary spider warriors?
You know, part of me, I don't know. I mean, he may not be a spider warrior, but I kind of feel Hawk might have something in there. I mean, it may not seem like much, but when you think about his movement and what he can actually do, I really think he kind of fits in with their group, even though he may not do exactly what they do.
My only problem with Ock is that Drax is just really so similar to him. They're both kind of tanky. And
yeah.
What pushes Drax above Ock for me is that Ock's throw is only limited to size 2. And so Drax has that size 3, and he can throw some of those bigger people. You know, he can throw those enemy Venoms away from your, you know, your Miles or your Peters.
True. Yeah.
And that's what pushes it above for me. But yeah, I think we have discussed this topic long enough. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and we couldn't do it without, you know, the subscribers or the viewers. And if you feel like showing your appreciation in a more monetary fashion, we would absolutely appreciate that. You can head on over to our Patreon. As always, like and subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Tell all your friends about us. Check us out on Instagram. Stay up to date on news, events, and just get to see some, you know, cool paint jobs and stuff. So, without further ado, he's Alfred.
And he's Tony.
Happy trails.